Hi, this is Dr. Swapna and I welcome you to your Learn Lab. If you are an IGNOU student looking for help in your studies, then you have reached the right place. Here, we have lecture videos on different core and elective subjects of important IGNOU courses. We aim to help you ace your exams. So hit subscribe to our channel and as you watch, make sure to like and share too. Come and join me on this beautiful learning journey. In this video, we'll be doing the Unit 6, that is Offender Typologies and Criminal Profiling of Block 2, which is titled Criminal Psychology. Let's begin with understanding two important terms, which is offender typology and criminal profiling. So, offender typology refers to systematic classification of offenders into two distinct groups based on their behavior, motives, and personality traits. So, in short, here offender typology simply means classifying criminals into specific types based on their behavior, motives, and personality. For example, a person who steals something due to poverty is very different from one who steals just for the sake of having fun or thrill. So they fall into two different typologies. The second term that we have is called criminal profiling. It's also known as offender profiling. It is an investigative strategy used by law enforcement to identify likely suspects based on crime scene analysis and behavioral patterns. So, this is a technique that is used by investigators to understand who the criminal might be. And how are they going to do it? Based on the clues from the crime scene, looking at how the crime was committed and the kind of person who could have probably done it. Think of it like creating a psychological sketch of an unknown offender. So that is criminal profiling. What is the basis of offender typing? So offender typing depends on several factors. First of all, the nature and seriousness of the crime committed. This means, is the crime violent? Is it property related? Or is it something financial? Right? What is the nature? And what is the seriousness of the crime committed? Secondly, psychological traits and mental state of the offender. What is the mental and emotional state of the offender? Whether they acted out of anger, or was it a need, or is it a mental disorder? Thirdly, we have frequency and consistency of criminal acts. So here the psychologist would be looking at the pattern or frequency, whether it's a one-time act or is this act repeated over time. Fourth, we have environmental and social influences on the offender. This means what are the influences that motivated or that resulted in that crime being committed by this particular person. Was it poverty? Was it peer pressure? Or something like family background? What was the influence that made the person commit that crime? And finally, personality traits. Personality and behavioral patterns observed before, during, and after the crime. How they behave before, how they behave after they have committed, also how they behave during or when they are actually committing the crime. All these help the psychologists and investigators to classify offenders scientifically. So, these are the basis on which different types of offenders are classified. What is a crime now? We are talking about offender profiling, right? Who's an offender? Who performs a crime? So, what exactly is a crime? Crime is any act that is a breach of a rule or a law that exists for a proper functioning of the society. Well, while we say that, every crime that is committed is not a violation of law, and every violation of law is not a crime also, right? So we need to keep this in mind while we talk about crimes and criminal. Now let's look at what are the different types of crimes. So crimes are generally divided based on who or what is harmed. Okay, so based on that, we have crime against persons. Example is murder or assault or even rape. Then we have crimes against property like burglary, theft, or even arson. Then we have crimes against morality like prostitution, illegal gambling, or drug use. We have white collar crimes which are non violent but financially motivated like fraud, embezzlement, insider trading, or tax evasion. Then we have organized crime. So these are crimes which involve groups which are very organized and planned. For example, there are drug trafficking, money laundering, or even weapon smuggling. Then finally, we have the hate crimes. These are committed out of prejudice against a particular religion or caste or a particular community. So remember, crime is any act forbidden by law that harms the society. And these are the different types of crime that is prevalent. Now let's come to the real part of the whole unit, which is theories of classification of offenders. So many scholars have tried to explain why people become criminals and how to classify them. So we'll study 4 key theories here. First is Lombroso's theory. So Lombroso is also called as the father of criminology. Father of criminology. So he said that criminals are born with criminal traits. Any criminal who performs a crime is born with that trait. And we don't generally agree to that today, but this was one of the earlier theories that was given by this person. Then secondly, we have the theory by Enrico Ferri. So he focused on the habitual and occasional offenders, people who habitually commit crime and people who once in a while or occasionally do some offensive act. Third, we have Franz von Liszt. He emphasized that social and psychological causes result in criminal behavior and it's not just biology. And finally, we have the Kretschmer's constitutional classification. He connected body types with criminal tendencies. So from biological to social explanations, theories evolved to give us a broader understanding of the criminal behavior. So let's look at the first theory in detail, which is Lombroso's classification. So Cesare Lombroso, he believed that some people are born criminals. He identified them through physical traits like a sloping forehead, people who have long arms or large jaws. So he classified offenders based on these physical traits, and these types included born criminals. Born criminals means they have inherent criminal tendencies or they are naturally inclined to crime. Then there are epileptic criminals. They are driven by abnormal brain function, which means they act in criminal ways due to brain disorders. Third, we have criminals of passions who commit crime under emotional intensity. Like they commit crimes in an emotional outburst, like maybe revenge or anger, right? And then we have insane and feeble-minded criminals. Then these kind of people are criminals due to mental defects. So they are mentally ill or intellectually challenged. And the final classification given by Lombroso was occasional criminals. And they commit crimes due to situation or circumstances or even opportunity. So Lombroso's theory was the first to connect biology with crime, though today it's considered outdated and overly deterministic, right? So this is the first theory of how to classify offenders. Next we have Enrico Ferri's classification. So Enrico Ferri, he was Lombroso's student and he gave a more practical classification of offenders. He said that criminals fall into 2 main groups. The first group is called occasional offenders who commit crimes due to external pressure, maybe hunger, maybe anger, or maybe even any particular needs, right? So there's always an external factor or a situational pressure which is causing the crime. The second group is called habitual offenders. And these are the people who repeat crimes regularly because it becomes part of their lifestyle. So they display consistent criminal behavior due to mental defect or environmental conditioning. Ferri also believed that environment plays a key role. So unlike Lombroso, he didn't see crime as just biological. He saw it as a social and psychological phenomena too. The third theory we have is from Franz von Liszt. So he was another major German jurist and criminologist who emphasized the social and psychological causes of crime rather than purely biological ones. So he shifted the focus toward rehabilitation. So he said, don't just punish the act, understand the person behind it first. So he divided offenders into three main categories. The first category is called occasional or momentary offenders. These are people who commit crime due to specific situation or temporary emotional and social pressures. So, and these are the kind of people who can be easily reformed also, right? So these are again people who commit crimes due to sudden situations or stress, and there is a good scope for them to be reformed also. The second group we have the habitual or professional offenders. They display repeated criminal behavior and psychological or social maladjustment. So these are the people who show repeated criminal behaviors and they need long term of rehabilitation to be reformed. They can be reformed, but it's not an easy process. And finally, the last one is the incorrigible or permanent offenders. They have deep-rooted criminal tendencies and resist any rehabilitation. They also show repeated criminal behavior, right? And with deep-rooted criminal tendencies. And they don't want to get reformed also. So List's approach was modern because he believed that punishment should fit the offender, not just the offense. So this laid the foundation for today's correctional psychology, right? So if you see his classification, he also classified based on them how easily these people can be reformed, right? So that's why he said that the classification should not be just based on the offense or the crime that has been done, but it should also look at what kind of person it is, if the person can be reformed or not. Then next we have finally the Kretschmer's constitutional classification. So Kretschmer connected physical appearance with mental tendencies. So this is a biological approach. So he basically was the first person who correlated physical appearance of a person with his or her mental condition. So based on that, he identified three personality types based on three body types. The first one is called athletic. Here the person is muscular and has a balanced body type, and such person are associated with stable and balanced temperament also. Alright, so generally how a person looks athletic, the same thing. Then second, there was asthenic, also called schizothymic or leptosomic category. Here the people are thin, introverted and sometimes associated with schizophrenia and violent crimes or serious crimes. Not always, they are just prone to. And finally, there is a picnic type. This means they are short, they have rounded body, they are very sociable and they are linked to manic depressive tendencies or mood disorders and minor crimes. Alright, so there are three main categories. First is athletic. These are people who are muscular and balanced and are often emotionally stable also. Then there are asthenic people who are thin, introverted, but there is a chance that they can suffer from schizophrenia and can perform serious crimes. Then there is a picnic body type, which are people who are short, who are round, but they are very likable, sociable. Sometimes they are linked to mood disorders or even minor crimes. So although we now know body shape doesn't cause crime, Kretschmer's theory was an early attempt to find patterns between mind, body and behavior. So he stressed the biological link between body type and the criminal behavior. Now, based on all the theories that we have seen and based on all the works that have been done by many other psychologists and researchers, based on psychological and sociological factors, based on all of these, offenders have been broadly categorized into two groups. So we have acute or momentary offenders. These are people who commit crimes suddenly or impulsively, maybe out of anger or desperation, something that is under temporary stress, right? Second is the chronic or habitual offenders. So these are people who commit crimes repeatedly and often due to personal or social issues. Could be personality issues also, personal issues, personality issues, or even social issues. This classification helps know the court or the judges, the psychologists, and prisons to decide who needs treatment and who needs rehabilitation and who needs stricter control and punishment. All right. So basically, this classification of dividing offenders into acute and chronic offenders help to design rehabilitation strategies and intervention strategies. Let's now talk about the types of offenders. This will help us understand criminal behavior more deeply. So, first of all, there is an opportunist. This is someone who keeps taking advantage of chances to commit crimes until caught. So, they would continue doing the crime till the time they are caught, right? Second is an experimenter who commit offenses while exploring or testing the limits, and these are generally people who are in adolescence. All right, so because it is adolescence, it could be as part of sexual exploration also. Third, we have inadequate and opportunistic offenders. They have mental deficiencies and poor judgment about what need to be done and what shouldn't be done. So they don't have mentally they don't have inadequate growth or development. Then we have the pedophile. Pedophiles commit crime against prepubescent children, which means children who have not attained puberty. Then we have ephebophiles. These are people who commit crimes against teenagers. And then there are pederasts who engages in sexual acts with boys under 18. Then there are exclusive and non-exclusive offenders. These are based on the sexual preferences of the individual. Then there are sex offenders also. These includes both pedophiles and ephebophiles. Such typologies help psychologists design specific rehabilitation programs for the offender. So these are the different types given in the study material. Next we study juvenile delinquency. So juvenile delinquency refers to illegal acts committed by minors, or the person who is committing the offense is usually below 18 years of age. So there are two main types here, and the first is called a status offense, like running away, like truancy, or underage drinking or underage substance abuse. These wouldn't be crimes if done by adults. So these are crimes because these are done by children who are below 18 years of age and who are not supposed to do it, right? So this is called status offense. Then there are delinquency offenses. These are serious crimes such as theft or assault or murder or even rape. So the causes of all of these, the juvenile delinquency, are varied. So we'll see them one by one. So the causes of juvenile delinquency could be substance abuse, poverty, lack of interest and excitement, lack of education, lack of skills, a dysfunctional family, peer influence, or exposure to violence during developing years. All of these can result in a child turning delinquent. The focus with juveniles should be to reform, not exactly punishment, because their behavior can still be shaped positively with good reinforcement and learning, right? So that was juvenile delinquency. Next we have forensic psychology and crime investigation. So forensic psychology connects psychology with law. This we have studied in the previous video, right? So it helps investigators understand why a crime has been committed, what the criminal might have been thinking, and even how victims may respond. And a forensic psychologist evaluates suspects, analyze witness statements, and provide expert opinions in the court. So forensic psychology It assists in understanding the criminal behavior and interpreting offenders' actions at the crime scene. The main focus areas are psychological evaluation of suspects and witnesses, providing expert testimony in court, and developing profiles to support investigation. So, in short, they make the invisible part of the crime, that is the mind, visible through science. And next we see the role of a forensic psychologist in criminal investigation. So the forensic psychologist role is multidimensional when it comes to criminal investigation. They collect behavioral evidence from the crime scene, how the offender planned or reacted during the crime. They interview the suspects and victims to understand motives and mental states, right? And they also prepare detailed psychological profiles to help police narrow down the suspect. They also assist in court with interpretation and criminal intent and competence, which means they explain complex human behaviors in simple terms for the judge or the jury to understand. So they bridge the gap between psychology and justice. So just to recap, they collect behavioral evidence from crime scenes, like how the offender planned the crime, how he reacted during the crime or before the crime and after the crime, right? Then evaluate the offender's motives, emotions and planning levels, interview the suspects, victims and witnesses, then prepare the psychological profile to narrow down the suspect list, assess the court with interpretation of criminal intent and competence. Then we have next the criminal profiling. Criminal profiling, this is one of the most interesting and fascinating areas in forensic psychology. So this means simply using the clues from the crime scene to predict who the offender might be or how the offender looks like. You might have seen this happening in movies multiple times, right? Where a person views the crime scene and then say, oh, this person is like this much tall or has this much weight or is handicapped or not. All of these characteristics features of an offender. So this technique was developed to predict offender characteristics from crime scene evidence. The key considerations here would be nature of the crime, whether the crime is organized or disorganized, which means if it was planned well or on the spot done. The sequence of events and offender's behavior, the victim's background and relationship to offender, and the motivation behind the crime. For example, an organized crime scene would be very clean, very planned, very controlled, and this would suggest an intelligent and socially skilled offender, right? And if the crime scene is very disorganized or like it is messy, which means the person has been very impulsive and it points to someone emotionally disturbed or inexperienced. So the people who do criminal profiling, they look at victim selection, weapon use and post-crime behavior also. All these help to identify the suspects and prevent any future crimes. So that is criminal profiling. And I don't know if you know, the first criminal profiling that was done was about Adolf Hitler. You can guess why, right? Yeah. And then the last topic of this unit that we have is psychological autopsy. So psychological autopsy is like profiling, but it is done after death. So it is a post-mortem psychological evaluation used in cases of suicide or unexplained deaths. So it reconstructs the mental state of the deceased prior to death. So generally it is used in cases of suicide or unexplained deaths to understand what was happening in the person's mind before death. So here the psychologists interview family, friends and study even the personal notes or messages to reconstruct the person's emotional state. This helps them to determine if the death was suicide, an accident or some foul play. So it also provides closure to the families and also gives valuable insights for prevention of such future suicides, right? So this is what psychological autopsy is. It examines cognitive, emotional and social factors leading to the incident or the death. It is also used as evidence in courts and research, especially in suicide cases. It's important in understanding the motive, mental illness and environmental stressors. So, to sum up, offender typologies and profiling help to see crime not just an act but as a behavior shaped by many factors like biological, social, and psychological. Understanding why someone commits a crime is the very first step towards preventing it. And that's what the forensic psychology and profiling is all about. Using science and empathy to make justice smarter and fairer.
Thank you all for learning with me. If you found the video helpful, make sure you let me know by hitting the like button. Make sure you share the video with your friends too. Subscribe to make sure that you don't miss out on any of the new videos. You can reach me by simply dropping a comment. See you in the next one. Till then, happy learning.